Good evening. The September 20th, 2021 legislative meeting of the Anne Arundel County Council is now in session. Please silence all electronic devices at this time. Once again, welcome back into the chambers. Please note that masks must be worn in all county buildings. You must wear your mask at all times. It will be helpful to my colleagues if you would please continue to introduce yourselves as we do during virtual meetings, and please also be sure you say your name or some portion thereof when making a motion or offering a second. You can use your flags or not. If you leave them up, I'm going to make a joke about your flag. So, okay, now we will please pause and or stand for the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Ms. Fiedler.
Will you please bow your head with me in prayer, each of us according to our individual beliefs? As we come together this evening, let us be thankful for the ability to be involved in this meaningful work and for the honor of bearing responsibilities given to us. May we have the wisdom to govern amid conflicting interests and positions and hear one another on all matters. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, please read the ethics statement.
The Ethics Commission has asked that I advise you that under certain circumstances, members of the public may qualify as lobbyists when they testify before the County Council. If so, the law requires that certain information be filed with the Ethics Commission. The chairman of the Ethics Commission has asked that those who wish to testify in any form review the general information on lobbying sheet located on the Ethics website under Forms and Publications. If there are any questions about lobbying requirements, please contact the Ethics Commission at 410-222-4413.
Thank you. We will now open our invitation to audience. Madam Secretary, do we have any comments or communications on any subject not included in the printed agenda received from members of the public?
Yes, Madam Chair, we did receive one submission through the online testimony tool that was shared with the entire council and has been added to the record.
Thank you. We will now invite members of the audience who either signed up before the meeting or are present now, didn't sign up but would like to speak to the council briefly on any subject not included in the printed agenda. Remarks will be limited to 2 minutes. If you'd like to speak, please come down now. Welcome, Ms. Johnson. You can pick any seat is fine. And Madam Secretary will turn on your microphone for you. I'm sorry you can't see our smiles behind our masks. It's very wonderful to see you after all this time.
It's very nice to see you all. I appreciate the warm greetings and the warm welcome.
Please remember to state your name and address for the record before your 2 minutes begins.
Julie Johnson, P.O. Box 6634, Annapolis, Maryland. So it's good to see you. I've got to be good and stick to my 2 minutes because I have so much to say. It's going to take me a couple of months to get through the 2 minutes breakup. But you know that one of the reasons people come before you is to, one of the nice ones is to tell you that something good is happening. And another category of things they want to do is to tell you about there's a problem and how can you solve this problem legislatively. And then sometimes, like last week, some of you heard one of the most remarkable Senate hearings with the gymnasts who were talking about a problem that involved so many different parties and organizations for how do we, what legislation can be written to address this dreadful problem of a criminal physician who sexually molested all these young kids. and did so over and over again. And here were all these different authorities, people with money and power and recognition, like the International Olympic Committee, and the gymnast group and so on. So in that same vein of telling you about some problems that I see, and you've heard parts of it, I want to bring it back to you and say, how can we address this problem? And I realize that there are 3 branches of government, and we can't dump all the load of solving all the world's problems on the legislative branch. But sometimes, if you involve the legislative branch, then you can draw in the other parts. So, given that, you may remember about P.O. Box 6634 is my address, and back in 2017, the clerk of the district court sent me the notice of a trial sent to Julie Johnson, P.O. Box blank. And I didn't get it for obvious reasons. And so this matter was returned, the document was sent back to the clerk of the district court.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. You're going to have to tell us next time. I know, 2 minutes.
Oh, it flies, okay. Well, pretend you're just, on the edge of your seat waiting for what comes next, because it's so exciting. But it's good to see you all. You all look healthy, happy, and everything. So it's really good that the room's different, and it takes some.
Likewise, thank you. And if anybody else wishes to speak, please come down now. Seeing no movement in the audience, the invitation to audience is now closed. Is there any item any council member would like to place on the agenda? Seeing and hearing none, we have our next piece is a presentation from Janice Hayes-Williams from Rec and Parks. Ms. Hayes-Williams? Thank you. Choose a seat.
Thank you to all members of the council. I'm here to tell you about the port marker that's coming to the city of Annapolis. I gave you information. On the top is a brochure from the Middle Passages Ceremony Port Marker Project. If you look on the back, there is a QR code if you want to follow me to understand better who they are. But the Port Marker Project, that's what I call it for short, has looked around the country for sites where captured Africans arrived as goods traded and coming to different places. There are 43 sites in the U.S. There are sites in Brazil. As you know, most of the Africans went to Brazil. North America only got about 35 or 40%. So here in America, we have established the arrival sites of slave ships. Those sites are called sites of memory. What that means is when a captured African comes to port, the first place that they step on is a site of memory. What I gave you in this package is a slave ad. We've seen it 100 times when we go to the Kuntikete Festival, the movie Roots. It's particular to us in Annapolis. We look who the business men who were selling the goods, the chattel, the people. You look at this one, John Rideout, the Secretary of State, who owned my family at Whitehall. My family built Whitehall before the Revolution. If you look at this ad, you see Daniel of St. Thomas Jennifer. He's the first president of the Senate in the General Assembly. I know that you know I bought this man back from a museum shelf. His owner was the president of the Senate. So we know who came here. The next page is a list of ships that came through here. The one that says the Lord Ligonier, that is the one associated with Alex Haley. You know, he came here to Annapolis to finish his book. And so as we are bringing this marker, we understand we have a heritage trail from that site all the way through Anne Arundel County. So understanding this need to mark these sites, the Middle Passage Marker Project identified 4 sites in the state of Maryland. One has a marker already in Hollywood, Maryland, Snow Hill. The second, we were so surprised, Oxford, after 5 years, just raised their port marker during the 4th of July. Approved in Anne Arundel County are 2. London Town, that has been approved by the United Nations. They have not raised a marker because they are waiting on construction, okay? The second one is Annapolis. The project came to Annapolis 2012, and there was no interest. They came back year after year, and finally, in 2019, they talked to Stuart Pittman, who in turn talked to Gavin Buckley, and they decided to have this marker. The reason is UNESCO, the United Nations, wants us to teach. And Councilman Ravian, would you please read the statement from UNESCO, why we have monuments to capture the history of the people in the world.
Thank you, Ms. Hayes Williams, and thank you for sharing your own personal connection to this. Transatlantic slave trade. There is a profound need to acknowledge that the transatlantic slave trade was a crime against humanity and among the major sources and manifestations of racism, racial discrimination, xenophobia, and related intolerance, and that Africans and people of African descent were victims of these acts and continue to be victims of their consequences. Monuments, memorials, and markers should be erected to facilitate this important public dialogue.
Thank you. With that, Stuart Pittman and Mayor Gavin Buckley sent a letter to the United Nations, UNESCO, asking to make Annapolis a site of memory. You have the documents in front of you. You know that we were approved. The way this works, once we are approved, the jurisdiction has a port marker committee. We bring the port marker in a ceremony that marks the site by UNESCO, and the ceremony includes the Native American Council because they were here first. The elders, all manner of clergy, and the elders, and we do have a port marker ceremony libation when we raise the marker. In your packet, we are sharing with you one side of the marker. You can't have everything. We have to save something for the big reveal. So you have one piece of that is provided by UNESCO. On the marker, no words can be changed. Nobody can change it. The United Nations has now adopted us in international remembrance of our ancestors. So where are we now? Different from the lynching memorial, I have to get approval from HPC with the city of Annapolis. We are well on our way, and we expect to raise the marker in February in Black History Month. So I'm here for information purposes. The county exec has decided, yes, we're going to do this. We are moving forward. And so I'm going here and there to educate. I had the opportunity to share this with the Anne Arundel County Board of Education. I had all of the secondary teachers, and they are ecstatic to be able to tell this story. So, fire away. Do you have any questions?
Thank you very much, Ms. Hayes-Williams. Does anyone have a question or a comment? Ms. Rodvian?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just, looking at the packet that you provided, I find it, I always knew that, not everyone that left on the ships from Africa arrived in the United States or wherever their journey ended, but the numbers are shocking. And I just want to point out a couple. 244 captive Africans and delivered approximately 200 people to Annapolis. A ship in 1698, 528 captive Africans and 423 were delivered. And the numbers go on like that for every one of these ships, and that is truly shocking.
I just want to add that because at that time we had customs, so what I found out, those numbers mean they could have stopped at Whitehall and dropped off in different tributaries, okay? So, but it's close. We don't know the exact number. And before I go, I have to say, this is so meaningful to us in Annapolis. We were there in 2012 when we were designated, okay? So in February, it will be 10 years we have been moving this forward, just one marker to tell the story. And last but not least, of the 2 locations, remember the story of the slave trade. Remember, all tornadoes start on the coast of Africa. So you will see in the packets, this is the arrival season. What does that mean? We are coming here on the trade winds, tornadoes, hurricanes. So the day that this was approved by the Port Marker project at noon, they said, this is wonderful, well done, go forward. 2 hours later, a tornado hit the only Anne Arundel County sites of memory, London Town and Annapolis, to show you it is very real, our story. Anybody else?
Ms. Hayes Williams, it's very much both a privilege and a humbling experience to be serving the county at a time when this historic marker project is going to actually become true and come to fruition. So please keep us updated, and if we can help, I'm sure you'll reach out to us.
I will.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
May I have a motion that the partial reading of any bill, resolution, amendment to a bill or resolution, or minutes constitutes the reading of the whole?
Allison Pickard, so moved.
Is there a second?
Rodvian, second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Madam Secretary, please read the minutes of September 7th and 13th, 2021.
Minutes of September 7th, 2021. The meeting was called to order by Chairman Lacey at 7 p.m. and opened with the invocation given by Mr. Pruski. Minutes of special meeting, September 13th, 2021. The meeting was called to order by Chairman Lacey at 6 p.m. and opened with the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance given by Ms. Rodvian.
May I have a motion to approve the minutes of September 7th and 13th, 2021?
Allison Pickard, so moved.
And a
Councilman
second?
Pruski, second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. The motion carries. The minutes of September 7th and 13th, 2021 stand approved as read. Madam Secretary, please read the titles of any bills to be introduced this evening.
Bill number 7721, an ordinance concerning transfer of control of cable franchisee, Anne Arundel Broadband LLC. Bill number 7821, an ordinance concerning purchasing, acquisition of real property by gift. Bill number 7921, an ordinance concerning pensions, deferred retirement option program, term of participation period. Bill number 8021, an ordinance concerning floodplain management, erosion and sediment control, and stormwater management, violation, enforcements, and penalties, civil fines, clearing trees of significant size. Bill number 8121, an ordinance concerning general provisions, prohibition against use of county funds or resources to promote or require discrimination. Bill number 8221, an ordinance concerning licenses and registrations, towing companies, towing or removal of vehicles from parking lots, placement of signs, regional malls.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, please read the titles of any resolutions to be introduced this evening.
Resolution number 4521, resolution appointing a member to the Anne Arundel County Ethics Commission. Resolution number 4621, resolution approving a nomination of a member to the Anne Arundel County Human Relations Commission. Resolution number 4721, resolution approving the determination of certain non-buildable county-owned property known as part of Drum Point Avenue and Crane Highway in Glen Burnie, Maryland as surplus property. Resolution number 4821, resolution approving the application to the United States Department of Justice Office of Justice Programs for a grant under the Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant Program Federal FY 2021 local solicitation and recognizing the county executive's authority to act in connection with the grant. Resolution number 4921, resolution in support of a replacement bridge at the current crossing of the William Preston Lane Jr. Memorial Bridge, otherwise known as the Chesapeake Bay Bridge.
Thank you. We will vote on resolution numbers 4521 and 4621 at the end of the meeting this evening. Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill number 6621 as amended.
Bill number 6621, an ordinance concerning zoning, parking, non-residential outdoor lighting and signage, prohibited signs, and temporary signs.
Ms. Hare, this is your bill. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jessica Hare, District 7. I will keep this very short because we've talked about this bill a number of times. Just to say that this allows a new material or a type of sign as a temporary sign in locations. I do want to note, because there have been a couple of questions that have come in recently, a couple of things. The first is that this does not change the location restrictions for signs. So the restriction that you can't put a sign in the county right of way, that is untouched by this bill. It still exists. I was looking at it earlier. It's 18.3-303D, C and D. So any prohibitions on state right of ways, that still exists in the COMAR. This bill is really, it allows wind signs to be a type of sign that someone could use as a temporary sign. And I want to be clear that temporary signs already exist under the code. A couple of folks emailed in to ask or to raise concerns about kind of a blizzard of signs that might come up from this. But this is, temporary signs are already permitted. This simply allows businesses or farmers who might want to advertise with a wind sign the opportunity to do that, as opposed to a sign on wooden stakes or some other sort of temporary sign. So with that, I appreciate all the work that Planning and Zoning has done with me on this bill. I appreciate the administration's cooperation in trying to get this to a good spot. I appreciate all the questions from my colleagues, and I ask for your support.
Mr. Barron?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Joining me at the table is our Planning and Zoning Director, Mr. Stephen Kai-Ziegler, and Ms. Kelly Kenny from Office of Law. Thank you, Councilwoman Hare, for putting those comments on the record. We actually received similar questions, as I'm sure you did, and I would have brought it up had you not. So I want to thank you for working with us to get the bill in the form that it is. It is a tough balance to strike. It's important for businesses to be able to advertise, to get customers in, with the need for communities to be protected from, as you said, a blizzard of signs. So this is a complicated issue. Bill may not be perfect if we find that it isn't. It's a great thing about the legislative process. We can come back and tweak it again. So with that, we are supportive of this bill, and I think it has to pass today. So with that.
That is correct, if at all. And do any of my colleagues, Mr. Volke, go
Thank
ahead.
you, Madam Chair. Nathan Volke, District 3. Just to confirm, this bill does not apply at all to right-of-ways. It only is applying to private property, right?
I would defer to Office of Law, but that is my understanding. We'll ask a better lawyer.
A practicing lawyer.
Kelly Kenny, Supervising County Attorney. That is correct. This would not apply to the right-of-ways. The signs are prohibited except for certain discrete types of signs in the right-of-way.
Got it. Thank you.
At this time, we'll now open the public hearing on Bill number 6621 as amended. Madam Secretary, do we have any testimony received from members of the public?
Yes, Madam Chair, we did receive one submission using the online testimony tool. It was shared with the entire council. Actually, it's posted to the website, and it has been added to the record.
Thank you. We will now open the public hearing portion. Remarks will be limited to 2 minutes. Did anyone sign up, or would anyone like to speak? I see Ms. Johnson coming down. I haven't gotten to say that ever as chair. And as usual, please state your name and address for the record, and you'll have 2 minutes.
P.O. Box 6634, Annapolis, Maryland. I am delinquent on this. I haven't read the bill. I haven't really studied it. I mean, I've heard about it, but what concerns me is that over these decades of the problems with my neighbors parking on my property, and chasing me off my own property and stuff, the police department said, you have to put up signs because we cannot issue any parking tickets as a matter of statute, because you must post these signs with these words and so on and so forth. But because of the lay of the land and the number of little parcels of land, I've got to post them all. And so I don't want to say that I'm a blizzard of signs. I would rather not have them. I would love to have peace and happiness and joy. But I have to post them, and they so anyway, that's a problem. And I'm so happy to hear that you're going to be willing to tweak the bill if there's a defect in it. So I just wanted to let you know, I don't know if anyone else has that same problem of being required to post certain signs. And unfortunately, mine not only include the neighbors, but there's the State Highway Administration, there's the City of Annapolis, and a couple of other things as well as the neighbors. So it's a mess. So peace and joy. Thank you lots.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Anyone else approaching the table? Seeing no one, the public hearing on Bill number 6621 as amended is now closed. Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill number 6621 as amended.
Bill number 6621, an ordinance concerning zoning, parking, non-residential outdoor lighting and signage, prohibited signs, and temporary signs.
Is there any further discussion? Mr. Volke.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There's nobody to ask questions to. Is the panel coming back up? Okay, all right. Sorry to make you guys
We didn't
come back
leave,
up.
sir.
So I guess my question, my understanding of the basis for this bill was to allow wind signs because there had been a situation where wind signs were not allowed. Looking at the very first, or actually the second page of the bill, excuse me, where it starts into the code, if we had simply removed the prohibition on wind signs without all the rest of the limitations on number and timing and temporary signs and all that, we could have achieved the goal of allowing wind signs, right? That's probably a question for Ms. Kenny, I'm assuming.
I think that's a question for Ms. Kenny or the sponsor of the bill.
Sure, yeah,
This was
either
not
way.
an administration drafted bill.
I just want to understand the legal impact, not necessarily the policy impact, just the idea of if legally we had removed in 3, there in 18-3-303 in section 3, if we'd taken out wind signs, that would have allowed them.
I'm just looking at Ms. Harris, see if she wanted me to answer. Okay, sure. Kelly Kenny, Supervising County Attorney. I think that is a fair representation. That was one way that the goal could have been achieved. This bill does revise the definition of temporary sign.
Thank you.
Ms. Hare?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jessica Hare, District 7. I just wanted to add a little context to that. I think if you remember Councilman Volke back in July when we first discussed this bill, that's how the bill started, actually. That was my initial draft, but there was a sign task force that was put together in 2017 that had a variety of other recommendations, in part from Supreme Court cases that had come out in 2015 and whatnot, and revising the definition of temporary sign was part of that. We also discussed that there were some concerns from constituents about allowing wind signs to be kind of permanent, and what implication that may have. And so upon conversation with planning and zoning and in an attempt to make sure that all parties were being heard, we ended up with this compromise where you could have 4 of them and as a temporary piece, just for a little context.
Any other comments? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, please call the roll on Bill number 6621 as amended.
Ms. Hare.
Aye.
Ms. Pickard.
Aye.
Mr. Volke.
Nay.
Mr. Pruski.
Aye.
Ms. Fiedler.
Aye.
Ms. Rodvian.
Aye.
Ms. Lacey.
Aye.
6 in the affirmative, 1 in the negative. Bill number 6621 is passed.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill number 6721.
Bill number 6721, an ordinance concerning public ethics, financial disclosure, legislative counsel to the county council.
So I am the sponsor of the bill only on behalf of the Ethics Commission, and I believe we have Mr. Botsaris. Sir, if you'd like to have the floor, go ahead.
Good evening, members. Reiterate for the council that this is the Ethics Commission requested bill to require that the position of legislative counsel file a financial disclosure statement. And the commission is requesting that that be codified in the appropriate section. I know there's been some objection to it. I understand there's 2 amendments that are pending. I guess I'll wait to the introduction of those amendments before we comment on those.
Mr. Swain, do you have any comments at this time for the administration?
No comments at this time.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the council at this time before we go to the public hearing? Seeing none. As a reminder, the public hearing on Bill number 6721 concluded on September 7th. Oh, now I remember. Since there was one amendment at that time, but it failed, we do not need to have another public hearing. So just kidding. Okay. So I think we should probably just go ahead to amendments. Nobody has any comments. So we have the first one. Madam Secretary, please read amendment number 2.
Amendment number 2. This amendment delays the effective date of the bill until the terms of the next succeeding members of the county council begin, or the official appointment of a legislative council, whichever is sooner.
Well, I am the sponsor of this amendment, Sarah Lacey, District 1. I feel strongly that this bill, not that it's intended to at all, but the effect is inevitably an interference in the attorney-client relationship amongst the 7 of us and our legislative council, and therefore, since I also don't agree with the reasons for the bill, but if my colleagues were to vote for it, I would prefer that it not take effect until the next council is seated, or we hire a new legislative council, whichever is sooner, and I'm sure the Ethics Council would be able to, or Ethics Commission would be able to track that for us. Mr. Botsaris, do you, actually, sorry, don't say anything yet. Is there a motion to adopt?
Rodvian, so moved.
Is there a second?
Fiedler, second.
Okay, now we can move to discussion. I'm ahead of my script here. Mr. Botsaris, do you have any response to the amendment?
Thank you. Reviewed the amendment. They are opposed to it. They do not believe that there's any good cause or reason for any unnecessary delay in the effective date of the bill. I know, Ms. Lacey, you say that it was for attorney-client privilege reasons. I don't quite understand how that gets interpreted into a delay into the effective date of filing a financial disclosure statement. So maybe you could help me clarify that for the Ethics Commission.
Sarah Lacey, District 1. The interference is with the relationship. This council, as each of the 7 of us are each clients of Ms. Schuett as our legislative council. And this would be, the first time that this requirement would be imposed. I'm not opposed to the requirement in the future. I am opposed when, at this point, as you can tell, because of the fact that our own legislative council and parliamentarian is not even here for the discussion of the bill. I think, being an attorney myself, I am quite aware of the rules of professional conduct and other existing standards that are already governing the relationship amongst the 7 of us and our legislative council. And with all included for the Ethics Commission, I don't see anything in that financial disclosure statement, which I have to fill out, and so do my colleagues, that could actually shed any light on any potential ethical conflicts under which Ms. Schuett already has a duty to report to us. The issue seems to arise from her request to engage in the outside practice of law. And whatever issues may have come up with that can be dealt with through the commission through its normal process. So I think, out of a sense that I don't think this is really necessary, but I don't oppose it from a good governance standpoint. On the other hand, I understand what the attorney-client relationship is, and the fact that our legislative council is not here because of this bill bothers me. But I don't in any way have any problem with any implication on the advice that she has given us. I also feel certain that if she felt she were to have any conflict, she would have disclosed it to us, and that there are those mechanisms that already cover that. So I feel the bill is unnecessary, and that perhaps the Ethics Commission doesn't quite see our relationship in the same way as we do, being the clients of this particular attorney. That is my response. Does anyone have a question or comment? Ms. Hare.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jessica Hare, District 7. I agree with Councilwoman Lacey. I'm not sure that there's anything that would make me necessarily feel better about the bill, in the sense that I do feel that the professional rules of conduct for attorneys cover any circumstance in which the Legislative Council might find themselves, and that's sufficient. I agree that the transparency piece of it can make some sense, but I like the idea of postponing this so that it gives some heads up to either the next council, and so somebody comes into the role knowing what they're going to have to do, as opposed to changing the rules midway through. But I don't know that I'm convinced yet that it makes sense for the financial disclosures to be filed at all by the Legislative Council, just given the role that she serves and what it might mean in that sense.
Anyone else?
Madam Chair, when this is a question for Mr. Batsaras, when the list of county employees was reviewed, I think I heard in 2018 or during the previous administration, and different positions were added, this council, or the county council, had a legal counsel that also was in private practice. Seems like the legislative branch was left out of the discussion altogether. Is there a reason why we're back again, or why you're bringing it in now?
Well, the reason they're bringing it in now is because the Ethics Commission has reason to respond to an inquiry that required investigation. That would have been helpful to have a financial disclosure statement of this particular position. And in moving that inquiry forward, they felt it would be best in the future going forward that it would have that tool at their disposal, as they do for many other attorneys in the county, including the county attorney and the county deputy attorney, as it does for all council members, as it does for anyone in a position to affect or manage legislation or county policy. And the commission felt that after reviewing the position, which was fairly recently created, that it would be very helpful going forward, again, to have that tool and be able to refer to it if future inquiries were presented to the commission. So that's the reason why it came up. That's the reason why we proposed it. And that's the reason why, we asked that it be adopted.
Thank you. Madam Chair, may I ask a follow-up to that?
Yes, go ahead.
So I've given this a lot of thought. The individuals currently in the code that are required to file a financial disclosure are not permitted to have private practice. So they're required to file a financial disclosure for other reasons. And those reasons, I can only imagine, are because they're sitting in a position of influence of policy and budgeting and things like that, correct?
Correct.
Okay, that's all I wanted to say.
Mr. Volke.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm curious about something. I keep hearing this in this discussion, that the Legislative Council is a relatively new iteration or creation. I mean, I interned on this council in 2006, and there was a Legislative Council back then. So I'm curious. I think it's been here a while, right? I mean, we're talking like 15 or 20 years, something like that. It just seems odd to me that we're sort of referring to this as some newly created position. I'm not taking a statement one way or the other on the amendment. I'm not clear on why we keep referring to this as a new position.
Mr. Volke, Michael Botzeris, Executive Director, Ethics Commission. It's my understanding that this position, the way it sits now, is fairly new within the last 2 years. If I'm wrong, maybe I'm missing something, but it seems to me that the position itself has changed, or the description of the position has changed, or the way it was appointed has changed, or the governing authority and whose responsibility for the appointment has changed. But I'd have to go back and research that position in that particular bill. But again, that even if it is the same, if the commission has a reason to believe that any position requires or would be helpful for the commission to complete its mandated duties of investigating ethics concerns and monitoring conflicts within county government, that the commission has a duty and a responsibility to ask the council for those tools. And it's certainly up to the council to either provide them or give reasons why they don't feel they're appropriate, which I understand, the reasoning on both sides.
May I?
You can or I will.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I feel like Bob Pollock was in this position like back in '06. I mean, that name is just in my mind. I feel like he had this job way, way back when. And then we have Ms. Tate, and now we've got Ms. Schuett. I do think that there may be some differences in how we've structured the position, but the position itself, I'm pretty sure, has been around for quite a while. So I would be curious on legislative history there. But that's just sidebar comment about we keep referring to this because it seems like this issue, if it is an issue, has been persistent and has been around for a long time, and this really isn't a new problem. It seems like maybe this is the first time the Ethics Commission has confronted it. Why, I'm not quite sure. You mentioned the inquiry. I don't know what, if anything, can be shared on that, but that certainly seems to me like what the impetus for this is, as opposed to some new creation of a position.
Well, if I may, Mr. Volke, Michael Botzeris, I'd ask Greg to speak on the issue of the position and whether it has come under different authority or what the difference is over the last couple of years. If he's familiar with any change in the position, was it under the County Office of Law at one point, or has it always been under the County Council? I've only been here 4 years myself, so I'm curious to that as well.
Greg Swing, County Attorney. Bob Pollock was an attorney with the Office of Law, and I was aware he was the Legislative Counsel, and he was one of actually maybe the last member of the Office of Law who had an outside practice, coincidentally. But as far as the history, I'm not aware that there was any substantive change in the Legislative Council over the past few years that I'm aware of. So can't really help on that.
Sarah Lacey, District 1. So I want to respond to a couple of things. First, I can say, I think on behalf of also my colleague, Ms. Fiedler, we worked together to lead the charge on hiring Ms. Schuett in the first place, or hiring a legislative counsel. And in doing that, we spent a lot of time with Ms. Joanne Gray going over what the scope of the duties and expectations and all experience and all of those things would be for a legislative counsel. Everything I recall that we ever talked about was based on Ms. Amy Tate, who is the only other independent legislative counsel that this council has had, and that she was here for a decade or more than a decade, and that she had been full-time, but then she was part-time for various reasons, and that she had not been prohibited from engaging in the outside practice of law. I'm not aware of, and no one's even intimated to me that there's been any substantive changes in any way in the manner of appointment, the scope of the job, the qualifications for the job, the relationship between our legislative counsel and the Office of Law, that would actually raise any of the concerns that you mentioned. But I am concerned that if we pass this bill, that the Ethics Commission will get a financial disclosure statement from Ms. Schuett and immediately use it in whatever investigation you alluded to, which seems quite wrong to me. Because if there's already an existing investigation, then the Ethics Commission should be using its own subpoena powers, and whatever other investigatory tools it has at hand to obtain that information. And going around it, in fact, proves my point that there's likely an interference intentionally in our attorney-client relationship, which I find unacceptable, to the point that I'm considering withdrawing my amendment and hoping that we all just vote all this down tonight and be done with it. But I could be convinced otherwise by my colleagues, and I'll stop talking. Somebody else, please.
Well,
Mr. Batsaris
for the
or
record,
Mr. Swain,
Ms.
go
Lacy,
ahead.
Thank you. Michael Batsaris, when you say we have, you're correct, we do have investigative powers, we do have subpoena powers. We're not asking for the financial disclosure statement from Ms. Schuett or any other legislative council position for the purposes of a current ongoing investigation. I mean, we understand that process of requiring a filing of a financial disclosure statement can take months, if not years, as you're proposing, to accomplish. This is something that they're looking for in the future as a tool to do their job. Whatever investigation is ongoing now, the commission is certainly able to handle that with its subpoena powers if necessary, and with other tools that are available and made available by the law. So we're not trying to get a financial statement from Ms. Schuett for any particular reason. We're trying to create legislation that will require the position of the Legislative Council file one going forward. So it's not for the purpose of any ongoing current investigation.
Mr. Swain, did you just leave your mic on, or did you have a comment?
I just left my mic on.
Okay, that is all right. I see Mr. Volkey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nathan Volkey, District 3. So, Mr. Batsaris, I guess my question then is, you've referred to the ongoing current investigation, and then you've said this is for future investigations, not for a current one. So I guess I'm not clear. Is there an investigation ongoing getting into the issues that Madam Chair was mentioning, where this financial statement is now going to be used in an ongoing investigation, or are we talking about a situation where there is no ongoing investigation and this is simply forward-looking? I don't know if you can comment on that, but that would be my question, because I've heard two different things in the remarks.
Respectfully, Mr. Volkey, Michael Batsaris, Director, Ethics Commission. I can't comment whether there is or is not an ongoing investigation. That would be a violation of confidentiality requirements of the Ethics Code. I did not say there was an ongoing investigation. I said there was an inquiry. There's a difference between an inquiry and an investigation. And in receipt of an inquiry, the Commission thought it would be helpful if it had a financial disclosure statement to review now and going forward. If it becomes a full-fledged investigation, there are tools available, as Ms. Lacy has pointed out, that are available to the Commission. It's not going to, whether or not this council approves the filing for this position is not going to affect one way or another any current investigation that may or may not be going on with the Ethics Commission.
Does anyone else have a comment? Seeing none, I'm going to request of Ms. Rodvian and Ms. Fiedler whether they would withdraw their motion and the second of my amendment so that I may withdraw my amendment.
Who goes first? Me?
Rodvian.
Okay, thank you. I didn't know if we needed to back out.
We moved it, yep.
Okay, I withdraw my motion.
And Ms. Fiedler?
I withdraw my second.
Thank you both. I would like to withdraw amendment number 2. Madam Secretary, please read amendment number 3.
Amendment number 3. This amendment requires that an administrative officer to the County Council file a financial disclosure statement.
Mr. Volkey and Ms. Pickard, you are the co-sponsors. Mr. Volkey?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I spoke with Councilwoman Pickard, and she said I can talk about this, so I'll be brief. This came out of some discussions with the administrative officer and some discussions with the Ethics Commission about whether the administrative officer should or should not be included in this. I don't believe that the Ethics Commission was asking for this, but this is something that I believe would make sense if we are trying to treat similar things similarly. So in this instance, if we are going to require financial disclosures from our legislative council, we could also require them from our administrative officer, who also has some ability to influence how things work here in the legislative branch. So with that, I would make a motion to adopt this amendment.
Allison
there a
Pickard, so
second?
moved.
Second.
Oh, I'm seconding. Second.
Mr. Botsaris.
Thank you, Michael Botsaris, Director, Ethics Commission. Although the Ethics Commission feels that adding this position is not necessary, it has no opposition to the amendment.
Do any of my colleagues have comments?
Madam Chair.
Ms. Pickard.
So as a co-sponsor, as I said earlier in my questions, in looking at the long list of county employees, it seems like, again, as I stated earlier, the legislative branch has just been left out of a larger conversation. And all those folks that are required, all 93 of them or however many they are, I feel we have staff that have the potential to be equally influential over policymaking. So that's why the amendment is before the council today. Thank you.
Does anyone else have a comment, or I'll offer my thoughts? Okay. I appreciate a creative attempt to try to, see if we can find a way to solve this issue by saying, here are the things that are similar between our legislative council and our administrative officer. But I actually don't see any similarities in any that relate to the Ethics Commission's views of what are the questions they're actually seeking to inquire into. If you were going to do that for one, then we should also add our assistant administrative officer and just be complete, and then no one would need to come back and talk about this ever again. But instead, the public is protected by the 7 financial disclosure statements that are filed by the people sitting at this dais. We're the only policymakers in this body. And to the extent that anybody had any question about that, there are many opportunities to raise those questions besides this bill. I know it may seem like a small thing on its face, but the principle is what matters. Anyone else? Ms. Fiedler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Amanda Fiedler, District 5. I agree with everything that the chairwoman has just stated, and I again don't like the idea of changing rules midstream for our staff. So I will not be supporting this amendment, but I do appreciate the effort here.
Okay. Madam Secretary, please call the roll on amendment number 3.
Ms. Hare? Nay. Ms. Pickard?
Aye.
Mr. Volke?
Aye.
Mr. Pruski?
Nay.
Ms. Fiedler?
Nay.
Ms. Rodvian?
Nay.
Ms. Lacey?
Nay.
2 in the affirmative, 5 in the negative. Amendment number 3 has been defeated.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, please call the roll on bill number 6721.
Ms. Hare?
Nay.
Ms. Pickard?
Nay.
Mr. Volke?
Nay.
Mr. Pruski?
Nay.
Ms. Fiedler?
Nay.
Ms. Rodvian?
Nay.
Ms. Lacey?
Nay.
0 in the affirmative, 7 in the negative. Bill number 6721 has been defeated.
Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, please read the title of bill number 6821.
Bill number 6821, an ordinance concerning public safety, animal care and control, authority to impound, tethering of dogs.
Mr. Barron, when you're all settled, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Pete Barron with the administration. Joining me is Ms. Robin Catlett from Animal Care and Control, Captain Adams from our police department, and Mr. Ritter, Kern Ritter from Office of Law. So I think this bill was discussed at the last meeting, and then we touched on it a little bit at the work session. Since then, there's been a number of discussions going back and forth to address some of the concerns that were raised in those discussions. I want to reiterate the administration was comfortable with the bill as introduced. However, in those discussions, there will be a couple of amendments that will be brought forward, and we are happy to say that we worked in partnership with several of you, and while we might not have wanted to compromise on everything, we did compromise and think we have a good product when we get to the amendments. And to reiterate a comment I made on another bill, the great thing about the legislative process is if we didn't quite get it right, we can always come back and tweak in the future. So I think with that, happy to answer any questions on the bill, but I'll reserve further comments until we get to the amendments.
Are there any comments or questions at this time?
And if we can all comment on how great Ms. Catlett's mask is.
Ms. Catlett, you're going to have to make some comments so that the public can see your mask.
Thank you all. I appreciate it. Figure a little bit of humor is always good.
So as a reminder, the public hearing on Bill number 6821 concluded on September 7th. And we can go into amendments. Madam Secretary, please read amendment number 2.
Amendment number 2. This amendment reduces the age requirement for a person to supervise a tethered dog.
This amendment is co-sponsored by Ms. Hare, Ms. Rodman, and Ms. Fiedler. Any of you ladies would like to take the floor? Go ahead, Ms. Hare.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jessica Hare, District 7. This is pretty self-explanatory. We had a conversation about kind of why the age 18 was chosen in the initial draft of the bill and discussed the fact that under state law, someone can be a babysitter at 13. And so it seems to me like those two should line up and they should be matching if you can care for a child and care for an animal. So that's it. It's very self-explanatory, and I hope all my colleagues will support it.
Is there a motion to adopt?
Rodman, so moved.
And a second?
Fiedler, second.
Thank you. Administration, response?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We do have some anxiety around the ability of someone that young, but we do think that the amendment as crafted is something we can live with. Obviously, the administration did prefer 18, but it does make sense given some of the comments for practical reasons. And, we reserve the right if issues do arise to come back before you. But with that, we support the amendment.
Any comments? Questions? Madam Secretary, please call the roll on amendment number 2.
Ms. Hare.
Aye.
Ms. Pickard.
Aye.
Mr. Volkey.
Aye.
Mr. Pruski.
Aye.
Ms. Fiedler.
Aye.
Ms. Rodvian.
Aye.
Ms. Lacey.
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Amendment number 2 is adopted.
Madam Secretary, please read amendment number 3.
Amendment number 3. This amendment allows for one period of 15 minutes each day that a dog may be tethered outdoors and not supervised.
Ms. Rodman, you're the sponsor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Lisa Rodman, District 6. I think as I expressed when we first discussed this bill, I think it's really important that we have that enforcement not be the only mechanism defining what the behavior is going to be. There will be individuals who will follow whatever the law is to the very letter. And I think if we make conditions, so restrictive for animal owners, we actually might end up shooting ourselves in the foot by making it so difficult that people say, well, I can't provide this for an animal. I need to have a little bit of flexibility. And so I want to make sure that animal owners, dog owners here, have that little bit of flexibility. And so I appreciate the administration working to find that, to make sure that we don't scare people away from pet ownership just by making the conditions so restrictive that someone felt like I can't do this safely. So.
Is there a motion to adopt?
Hare, so moved.
And a second?
Second, Allison.
Administration?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Pete Barron with the administration. Again, appreciate the dialogue that occurred over the past couple of weeks on this issue. Recognize the concerns and appreciate the sponsor's recognition that there are cases that have been quite egregious and the need to protect the animals in the community, as well as the limited resources the county has to deploy, and we feel that this is a fair compromise to make sure that in those bad cases we will be able to enforce the law and provide some flexibility for all the good pet parents. So with that.
Mr. Pruski.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the sponsor. I got to ask the administration, Ms. Catlett or Captain Adams, if you can help me here. I mean, this whole bill is based upon enforcement, and I think it was just mentioned, obviously, the extreme cases. I mean, are you okay with this amendment, and you think that this isn't going to be a hindrance or help? I just want to be clear, because obviously, when you're trying to interpret a case where it's egregious, because my understanding, just like a police officer pulling somebody over, are they going to give a ticket every time? No. Do they give a ticket? Sure. I saw somebody today, but they'll be fine. My point being is I want to make sure that we're not overly legislating here, but on the other hand, to have a tool that will be used correctly. And again, I know that by a legal stance, the interpretation. So if you could just respond to that, please. I know specifically talk about this amendment, but this bill has many of those, and I want to be clear about what I'm voting for. Thank you.
Robin Catlett from Animal Care and Control. Thank you, Councilman Pruski. So yes, we believe that for animal care and control, this will be enforceable because of the requirement to have the individual outside in line of sight. When we approach a property and we see an animal outside tethered, should be able to assess pretty easily whether or not a person is outside and in line of sight. And if not, we can start a timer at that moment, stay on scene for 15 minutes while completing the necessary paperwork, drafting notices, etc. And then if the animal is still outside and no one has come out within sight of the animal, we can address that. And with it being only once per day, that eliminated our concern that we might have this kind of consecutive thing happening over and over again. So we do believe this will be enforceable for us. And thank you very much for your question. I appreciate it.
Does anyone else have a question or a comment on Amendment 3? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, please call the roll on Amendment number 3.
Ms. Hare.
Aye.
Ms. Pickard.
Aye.
Mr. Volke.
Aye.
Mr. Pruski.
Aye.
Ms. Fiedler.
Aye.
Ms. Rodvian.
Aye.
Ms. Lacey.
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Amendment number 3 is adopted.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Bill number 6821, as amended, will be heard on October 4th, 2021. Moving on to Bill number 7121, as amended. Madam Secretary, please read the title of that bill.
Bill number 7121, an ordinance concerning licenses and registrations, swimming pools, pool operator, and lifeguard licenses.
Ms. Fiedler, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Amanda Fiedler, District 5. So we discussed this bill at length at our last council meeting. There was a friendly amendment that was offered and passed. I do appreciate the administration's support to remove the necessity to license that a lifeguard is certified and changing the schedule for a pool operator's license. And I ask for my colleagues' support this evening.
Mr. Barron?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Pete Barron with the administration. Joining me at the table from Office of Law is Ms. Kelly Kenny, and from Department of Health with his 40 years of service recently, Mr. Don Curtian.
Thank you, Don.
If you haven't seen his first ID picture, please do yourself a favor and check out his Twitter. So as the sponsor mentioned, this has been a good discussion. This is a good bill. We support.
Any questions or comments at this time? Seeing none. Since this bill was amended last time, we will now open the public hearing on Bill number 7121 as amended. Madam Secretary, do we have any testimony received from members of the public?
No, Madam Chair, we did not receive anything on Bill number 7121.
All right, we will now give the audience the opportunity to comment on the bill. If you'd like to speak, you have 2 minutes, but you have to stand up and come to the table. Seeing no movement in the audience, the public hearing on Bill number 7121 as amended is now closed. Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill number 7121 as amended.
Bill number 7121, an ordinance concerning licenses and registrations, swimming pools, pool operator, and lifeguard licenses.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, please call the roll on Bill number 7121 as amended.
Ms. Hare.
Aye.
Ms. Pickard.
Aye.
Mr. Volke.
Aye.
Mr. Pruski.
Aye.
Ms. Fiedler.
Aye.
Ms. Rodvian.
Aye.
Ms. Lacey.
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Bill number 7121 is passed.
Madam Secretary, please read the title of resolution number 3621.
Resolution number 3621, resolution in support of the County Executive of Anne Arundel County promptly entering into an agreement with Robert A. Pascal Youth and Family Services, Inc. to lease and make fully available county-owned property located at 41 Community Place in Crownsville, Maryland.
Thank you. Ms. Fiedler is the lead sponsor on this resolution. Ms. Hare is a co-sponsor. Ms. Fiedler, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As stated in previous meetings, I think this resolution really speaks for itself. I do appreciate my colleagues' support in holding this bill at our last meeting for another 2 weeks. In that time, communications have continued. I did have an opportunity to chat with several of the organizations that are interested in the incubator initiative. I thought it was promising, interesting that some of them are interested in even partnering with Pascal in the future, sharing that they feel that their clients themselves at times or a family member have needed or could utilize mental health crisis care, which kind of brings back to the whole necessity for more beds in the county. I've said, having said that, in the months-long discussion on this resolution, I think that we have learned and important information has been shared. Pascal was able to share with us compelling turnaway data. We have had additional visits to Pascal to see the work that they are doing inside, and ongoing communication with the administration about incorporating expansion of mental health beds at 41 Community Place has also continued. I think that there have been some areas of growth or need for growth that have been highlighted in this discussion. I think we need to learn more or do more to educate ourselves as we make decisions on the varying licenses that are offered by the state. A substance use disorder license does not qualify a provider to take a mental health patient. They are different. I think we need to make sure that we're not using terms like institutionalization for short-term stabilization. That would deter or could deter folks from seeking assistance on their own or otherwise. I think we need to work urgently with our private partners in the county who have the ability to provide the care necessary to give space for residents who are in dire need of mental health treatment. I did speak to the county executive on Friday. I appreciated the very quick turnaround and request to have one last chat, who committed in the conversation to continuing the conversation with Pascal Family Crisis Center about 41 Community Place. Did I get that wrong, Mr. Barron, or I believe there was a commitment to continue the conversation?
Pete Barron with the administration. We are committed to continuing the conversation. We have never said otherwise. Pascal is a valued partner in the entire continuum of care that the county needs. We need Pascal. We need the work they do. It is why the county executive brought forward the 15-year lease on the other, and we are committed to continuing the discussion.
Thank you. And for all of these reasons, I want to withdraw Resolution 3621, but For all of those families and family members who reached out expressing how important it is to increase our mental health bed capacity, I don't want you to feel as though we have failed you here this evening. I hope you continue to write and share to people who can make a difference, who can be advocates for mental health and increasing the bed capacity. Continue to write your letters, your emails. That is the only way we can know how desperate your family members and residents in this county are. Thank you.
Ms. Hare, do you agree also to the withdrawal of the resolution?
Yes.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, please note that resolution number 3621 is withdrawn.
So noted, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, please read the title of resolution number 4521.
Resolution number 4521, resolution appointing a member to the Anne Arundel County Ethics Commission.
Mr. Barron.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Pete Barron with the administration. Sticking with me at the table from Office of Law is Ms. Kelly Kenny. Resolution 4521 appoints Solemn Webb to the Ethics Commission for an initial term expiring April 30th, 2024. As you most likely know from Mr. Webb's resume, he's very experienced in innovation in the health insurance industry. He has served our county as a board member on the Anne Arundel County Board, or Anne Arundel County Public School Board. He has previously served on ethics committees in the past, particularly for AACPS, providing him with the experience that we believe the Ethics Commission needs. He resides in Councilwoman Rodvian's district. You should have his resume and all the supporting documents in front of you. Happy to answer any questions you may have. Ask you to move the resolution.
Are there any questions from the council? Mr. Pruski.
Yeah, Madam Chair, just as far as the record, I did serve with Mr. Webb as a Board of Education member, but I feel that he would be impartial like anyone else in his resume, but I wanted to make that clear. Obviously serving in public office with somebody, but again, just like Mr. Volke had somebody and went to high school with. So we want to make sure that we're very clear for ethics that how I know Mr. Webb. So thank you.
Madam Chair.
Ms. Pickard.
I served with Solemn Webb as well. After this ethics conversation tonight, I guess I should just close that.
Ms. Rodvian.
I figured I might as well add that I was a colleague of his wife.
Ms. Hare.
I actually have a question for Office of Law. Is it permissible then that this person could serve on both the ethics panel for AACPS and also the Ethics Commission for the county, or is there any problem with that? Because it looks like, maybe the term has expired? No, it's till next year. It looks like Mr. Webb will be on the AACPS Ethics Commission until June 30 of next year. Is that a problem?
Kelly Kenny, Supervising County Attorney. That is something I don't know the answer to offhand. I guess we'd have to check and see if that is the current term that he's serving there and make sure that there's no conflict there. That may be something we have to check with the Ethics Commission as well.
Okay, thank you.
May I have a motion to hold the vote on resolution number 4521 until October 4th?
Madam
Yes,
Chair,
Mr. Barron.
if I can we push this to the end of the calendar and let me just do a quick little bit of research, because I want to make sure I'm correct, or that you're correct that he's still serving.
That's what their website says. That's all I know.
Okay. Well, if you've got it on the website, we can hold it.
So moved.
Okay, thank you. And a second?
Hare, second.
Madam Secretary, please call the roll on the motion to hold the vote.
Ms. Hare.
Aye.
Ms. Pickard.
Aye.
Mr. Volke.
Aye.
Mr. Pruski.
Aye.
Ms. Fiedler.
Aye.
Ms. Rodvian.
Aye.
Ms. Lacey.
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. The motion to hold the vote on Resolution 4521 has been adopted.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, please read the title of resolution number 4621.
Resolution number 4621, resolution approving a nomination of a member to the Anne Arundel County Human Relations Commission.
Mr. Barron?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Pete Barron with the administration. Sticking with me is Ms. Kelly Kenny. Resolution 4621 appoints Laura Languide to the Human Relations Commission for the remainder of a term ending November 17th, 2021, and to serve a full term ending November 17th, 2024. She is a very motivated and dedicated individual who has a special interest in helping the Latinx community. She volunteers with her church, curating community fairs, working closely with embassies and consulates to help bring services to the Latinx community. She is incredibly invested in helping her county and community, and it would be an honor to have her serve on the Human Relations Commission. She resides in Councilwoman Fiedler's district. You should have her resume in front of you. Hopefully I can answer any questions you may have on her.
Any comments or questions? Mr. Volke?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not clear on this, and we've had a couple resolutions appointing members to the Human Relations Commission. What are the qualifications that you all look for when you're vetting people to put them on the Human Relations Commission? Because we've had like PR professionals, we've had other people. I understand that this particular person may have a skill set that you want. I guess I'm just trying to understand what is it that you're looking for when you make these decisions of who to appoint.
So it's a great question, Mr. Volke, and unfortunately, Megan Brown, our Boards and Commissions Director, couldn't be here tonight, so I'll do my best to answer that. So there's obviously you want a good mix of skill sets. You got to recall that all of our boards and commissions are volunteers, so the ability to serve the time, but all in this particular case, you know, we did not have, I don't believe we have anybody serving on the commission who's fluent in Spanish. So in her case, it was specifically filling that niche. Others, age, background, as this council knows, it's important not to have everybody coming from the same place. So it's, you know, you're building it, balancing a number of factors. So there's no, you know, you might make a pasta sauce one way, I might make it another way, but we're both going to have a good meal. So that's, I think, what the county exec is looking for in when you're selecting a board and commission. Best analogy I could come up with on the spot. It's from a bottle you buy it at the supermarket.
We're all coming over to your house after this meeting. Are there any other questions or comments?
Madam Chair.
Ms. Fiedler.
Thank you. Just for clarification, this appointment is due to the county executive's appointment stepping down. This was not the District 5 council. I just want to make sure there's no confusion for anyone out there watching.
No, this was, we had an appointee who stepped down. I don't believe this appointment is related to council district. She just happened to reside in your district, or happens to.
Madam Secretary, please call the roll on resolution number 4621.
Ms. Hare.
Aye.
Ms. Pickard.
Aye.
Mr. Volke.
Aye.
Mr. Pruski.
Aye.
Ms. Fiedler.
Aye.
Ms. Rodvian.
Aye.
Ms. Lacey.
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Resolution number 4621 is adopted.
Thank you. And I'm going to call for any other business, and I actually have some, so don't put away your pens and pencils just yet. I'll go first since I have business. So first is a reminder that the County Council will sit as the Board of Health during our work session on October 12th, 2021. The second item of business is Do my colleagues wish to have virtual work sessions? I was going to propose that it might be handy to do so for at least through the end of my term or through the end of the year, with scheduling things and with health concerns and with overall people are just more efficient on those Tuesday mornings. Does anyone have any comments or thoughts on that? Mr. Pruski.
Madam Chair, I feel comfortable with that because while the public can watch, they can't participate. That's per our rules. So I feel like, obviously, for the office folks and other ones, I think that's probably the best. Again, that's my personal opinion. But you could still ask questions and do other things. And certainly, and I appreciate the council's flexibility. There's been a couple times where I've had to, exit for various reasons. But again, that would be my preference given the current, health issues, but also the fact that the public, again, if they were able to come in and ask questions, that'd be a different story. But since our work sessions are bound by those rules, that would be my position.
Anyone else? Ms. Rodvian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple points. The administration pointed out that this is a great way to make more efficient use of the time of many of the people that come and sit at the table with the administration, who often have to wait for, maybe several hours, make a trip from their offices, which are not all located here at the Arundel Center. And I think it really does add a little bit more flexibility because for the council members ourselves, because technically we are part-time employees, although I don't know if it ever feels like that for anyone. But I think those two things combined with what my colleague Mr. Pruski mentioned, that the public can not actually participate anyway. It is only able to, observe. They can still observe. And so I think this is actually a really great move, efficient government.
Well, the saying goes, we have the technology, right? Anybody else? We don't have to, I guess, take a vote, do we, Ms. Corby? I think our Madam Secretary will be following up with all of us, but I wanted to discuss it out in the open like we're supposed to, and then you'll look for your emails from Ms. Corby. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Allison Pickard.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Nay. The motion carries. The County Council is adjourned until October 4th, 2021. More information is posted on our website. Good night.